Hello and welcome to Mystery Us. I'm Tony Pratt, your host for Mystery Us. And today on our program, we have a very fascinating individual who was a former Episcopalian priest and is now a shaman. I've been reading his book, and I would characterize him as a modern-day Carlos Castaneda, although he actually brings the knowledge to you in a more down-to-earth way. Welcome to Mystery Us, Peter Calhoun.
Thank you very much, Tony. It's good to be here with you.
Now, Peter, you began your spiritual quest as an Episcopalian priest.
Yes, I did.
Now, how did that transition into shamanism?
Well, that story is in the beginning of my book, Soul on Fire, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But very briefly, while I was in my 8th year as a priest and serving a parish in the Episcopal Church in Atlanta, Georgia, I had a series of disturbing visions about the future of our earth. And I was shown in these visions that we were heading for a total environmental collapse that would cause great suffering and really destruction of the world's civilizations. And this had the ring of truth. I'd never had visions before, but these visions that happened in the early morning hours seemed more real than most things in real time. And so I realized that organized religion had been the bell cow on the environmental issues, that there was nothing being done about this. And so I began to look and search for systems of knowledge or institutions that were addressing these. I discovered that the only group that had consistently learned to live in harmony with our environment were the shamanic cultures all over the world. And they had a track record of living in harmony with all life for thousands of years. This is one of the things that got me on that path of shamanism. When I was told that time was rapidly running out, that we'd been very poor caregivers in the garden of our world, and that we were about to reap a bitter harvest, and we could still turn things around. And so it was this was one of the things that caused me to make the leap that I made out of the protective canopy of mainstream Christianity into the uncharted realm of spirit, I like to say, because it was truly a leap into the unknown. And most people, when they leave their vocation, they do it out of disenchantment or failure. I was supremely happy in the life I'd chosen. It was a life of service, and I loved it. So it was a very reluctant departure, but I knew that I had to be true to the visions that I received, and I had to, as the Native Americans say, I had to live out my vision.
Okay, but at one time you did come to kind of question your decision or wonder about, do I need a regular paycheck, or, what's going on here? What am I really doing?
Yes, I did. I questioned whether I had made the right decision or not.
Mm-hmm.
I think one always questions these things because I had just made a leap into the unknown. And some of it, there were no set paths. There was no map to guide me from point A to point B. And so I began to have my doubts, and it was during this time that I was having these severe doubts. It was 10 years after I made my transition, actually. I had a series of lucid dreams, the same dream 3 nights in a row. And I saw this goddess-type woman that turned out to be the Greek goddess Artemis Huntress, that was running with the animals. This is one way she's depicted in the dreams. I saw the elk herds and deer herds, buffalo herds, and all the small animals passing in review, and she would stop and speak to me. And the third time she spoke to me, she said, "You're a servant of the Earth Mother. You'll bring many people back to the Earth Mother." And she made some predictions about things in my life that did come true in detail a few weeks later. And so I knew that this was authentic, and I knew that it was my job to help people return to the Earth Mother, that we were like the prodigal children that had strayed from the very source of our life.
Right. Now, this Artemis Huntress, you had the dream 3 times. Now, in shamanism, if you see this same vision or dream 3 times, that means that pretty much confirms.
Absolutely.
Now, is that your power spirit, or?
There's something about,
Yeah.
and you find this in every tradition, in every culture. 3 times you can say it's etched in stone, that this is authentic, this is going to happen.
Right.
It can't be changed. And so I knew that this was authentic, and the experience that I had of meeting this great being that I thought was only a mythological character was overpowering. It was later that I had a similar experience of when I was on the North Fork of the Salmon River, leading a vision quest for a group of adults, and I had this presence that just overshadowed me and merged with me, and it was the most incredible maternal love that I've ever experienced. I knew it was far too pure to be human, and I knew instantly it was the Earth Mother. And that Artemis Huntress is an aspect of the Earth Mother. I knew it was the same being.
Is that like an archetypal image, or?
It was like an archetypal image, but it was more than that, because it was intensely personal, and the feeling of love. The nurturing feeling was one of the most powerful experiences I've ever had. So I had before this time thought that what we call the Earth Mother was a name for an impersonal force in nature, and I realized that this is a very real being that is the source of our life here on Earth, and is responsible for so much of what we have and are. And I was told that she knows each of us by name, that she has, and cares for each of us, and wants more than anything for our humanity, our species on this planet, to return to her and return to the earth, that we have been the prodigal children that have strayed, and in some ways we've strayed drastically from our true path.
So she's kind of like Mother Nature in a sense.
Yes, one and the same.
Now, but let's backtrack just a little bit before we get too far into it. We're talking about shamanism now. Can you give us a general definition of what shamanism is? I mean, is it a religion?
Shamanism is not another religion.
Okay.
Shamanism is a way of perceiving. It is a way of relating to the earth and to all life, and it is the oldest system of knowledge. It arose out of the practical needs of early human beings, and for this reason, it's very pragmatic, and it has, as I said, the best track record environmentally of any system of knowledge. A shaman, though, is sometimes defined as one who walks between the worlds. This is a person that has this unique ability to be mediator between the human world and the invisible world of spirit, and also between the human world and the nature kingdoms. And so the shaman, as mediator, then will learn how to, if they often have the power to bring in the rains when rains are needed, or end the rains if you're getting excessive rain. They could call the animals to them, or they would know where to find the buffalo herds. They could talk to the plants and find out which plants were good for which ailments, and not only that, but how to prepare them. And so they had quite a versatile abilities and knowledge, and they were the tribes and the villages, the European villages, were very dependent upon their shaman.
Now you discovered, you're practically a modern day Dr. Doolittle. You discovered that you could talk to all different kind of animals, and not only just talk to them, but communicate telepathically.
Yes, I did, Tony, and the first time I experienced this was, and this is not in the book, but I can tell this story, was when I was having dinner with a person that had attended a workshop of mine, and her little Sheltie was all over me and really annoying me, was trying to jump into my lap the whole time, and I said, "Why do you have this wry smile on your face?" My hostess, and she said, "Well, I've been trying to figure out what makes you tick, because my Sheltie can't stand men, and she's all over you." And I knew at that moment that this Sheltie was trying to get my attention and tell me something. The Sheltie had some very strong needs or concerns. And I heard myself saying, she's very depressed. She's depressed because you haven't been giving her bones, and she loves bones. You haven't been taking her for rides in the car. And also there's a big black dog that she's afraid of. And she said, I can't believe what you've just said, that yes, she's been very depressed for weeks. Her favorite thing is to eat bones. She loves bones, and I haven't been bringing her home any bones for a long time. Her favorite thing to do is to ride in the automobile with her head hanging out, and we haven't done that. And we've just started a new route on our walks when I get home from school. She was a school teacher, and she said we go by a yard where there's a big Doberman, a big black Doberman that's behind a fence, and it lunges at her. And I can see her shaking. She knows she's supposed to defend me, but she's terrified. And so I said, well, we'll get her some bones, for God's sake, and take her a different route on the walks, and and give her, let her ride in the car some more. Well, the next time I had dinner over there, which was a couple of months later, her little Sheltie was very, very calm. She said, I did all the things that you told me, and her depression went away immediately. And this was my first experience of communicating with animals, and I found that it's really quite easy, and we all have this ability. This is one of my missions, is to not only to be able to demonstrate this sort of thing, but to teach people how to do this.
And you've been able to come into the presence of large wild animals and communicate with them, and in fact call them to meet you at a certain time and place, and they've shown up.
Yes, I have. I've been able to call animals to myself, and also to know where to find them in the wilderness. I have called deer to me, and a herd of bighorn sheep I once called to me, and they appeared the next morning at my campsite 3 miles away.
Right.
And so I found that it's quite easy. My partner, Astrid, actually is probably more talented in this than I am. This last time we were camping in the northern Rockies, she called the bears to her, and for the next 6 weeks, bears were appearing in front of us everywhere we went. And we were in several different parts of the country. They would just suddenly be crossing our paths, and it was an amazing thing. And she has deer walk up to her out of the trees, and instead of running off when they see her, they drop to their knees and just gaze at her in trust and innocence 10 feet away. And this is an extraordinary thing. So in some ways, my partner has, in some areas, she surpassed what I have achieved, and we love to compare notes. So obviously, we find it great joy to be out in the natural world.
Now somehow the wild animals seem to know what your intentions are. I mean, you can't sneak up on them. You're in their world pretty much, and they know who to trust and who not to trust somehow. I mean, what would you say to people that are pretty fundamentalist type Christians that say, well, man is meant to dominate the earth and come in and
well,
be a steward of the earth? And
this was actually an insert that was put into the creation story. Long after that creation story came into being, it was the influence of the patriarchal takeover of the church.
Right.
And so in this in command supposedly coming from our Creator, we are told that our destiny is to dominate the earth, to rule over all life and to subdue the earth.
Right.
And of course, we've done such a good job subduing the earth and having dominion over all life, as that mandate from the supposed Creator was given to us. Then we've put ourselves in great peril. We are spiraling toward destruction, and we are not going to survive the 21st century unless we can turn things around environmentally. And so we did a very good job subduing the earth. We were never meant to do this. We were meant, the whole idea of being in the Garden of Eden is that we were meant to be caregivers in the garden and to be in relationship with all life. And so as a teacher, as a shaman, I'm teaching people how to be in relationship with all life. And this relationship it can be an ecstatic experience when we realize that we're really not separated. We have just accepted this dogma that we are separated from the earth and from life,
Right.
from the nature kingdoms. They're a part of us, and we are part of them.
Absolutely. Okay, now I always throw in a few off-the-wall questions, and you have a lot of vision questions. You've got some coming up. I want you to give me the dates and places on
We
those.
take groups out
Right.
for vision questing, which is an ancient rite of passage that was used by the Native Americans. We do this every year, and we have a group that will be vision questing at the last week in May in Canyonlands, Utah. So people that are interested can check my website, which is www.petercalhoun.com, and you can click in on Vision Quest. But this is one of the most powerful experiences that I think a person can have during that Vision Quest. People have the opportunity to spend several days alone in their silent meditation and working with their spiritual practices, and it's a very life-transforming experience. I recommend this.
Right now, in your book, you describe it's not necessarily, this is not a retreat. This is not just where you're just kind of taking a vacation there. I mean, you're challenging yourself. It's not necessarily all positive and good and
no, Tony, that's exactly
happy,
correct.
joy.
Well, it's not positive in the sense that it's always feel good, because when we get out in wilderness, when we go out into solitude, then quite often our demons arise, our internal demons. It can be a fear of the dark, a fear of large animals, a fear of snakes, a fear of just being alone, or just nameless fears. And these come up, as well as the fears that we are very much aware of, the fear of things that are going on in our life. And so we are forced to confront these. But when that's against the backdrop of this magical and beautiful panorama of the Red Rock Canyons in that area of Utah, then it is so nurturing, it is so powerful that one almost always has a transformational experience.
Right now, you've spent a lot of time in wilderness areas, and you've probably come in contact with a lot of different wild creatures. Have you ever had a Bigfoot sighting or heard tell of anything about Bigfoot?
We've never had a Bigfoot sighting on our vision quests. I did encounter indirectly a Bigfoot years before that when I was staying in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains in New Mexico. And I was in a pretty isolated area that summer, staying in a cabin, and we found huge tracks, bare feet that were much larger than humans. Right. Several times we got that intense smell that has been described around these Sasquatch or the Bigfoot, and so we knew it was around, and we also felt
Was it a skunky kind of smell?
Yeah, it's a skunky kind of smell, and we knew that it was benevolent. It was curious about us, but we knew that it was benevolent, and we never felt any danger from any of these creatures.
Now, I was reading about one of your vision quests, and you did feel fear and danger, and you felt like the message that you were receiving, even though you were acting calm, was, I need to get the hell out of here.
Exactly. And this is fear. This was not paranoia. It was based on something very real. One day when I was alone vision questing, I heard a voice on the wind. And the voice said that I needed to move my campsite, that it would be dangerous for me to keep it where I was. Well, I was camped. I had my sleeping bag near a huge cottonwood tree that leaned at perhaps a 20 or 30 degree angle, but it was very much alive. And
Right.
there was a vast acreage of cottonwood trees because a stream flowed through that canyon. And so these were huge cottonwoods. And I thought, is this my imagination? But something told me that I'd better not take it as my imagination. So I moved my campsite reluctantly. And that night, just as I was told by this voice on the wind, or by the wind's voice, I don't know which it was, but I was, that night, just as I was told, a gale force wind came up suddenly around 10 o'clock that night. The next morning, there was a lot of debris on the ground. I had moved my sleeping bag out into the open prairie, so I knew that I was safe, even though it was still a harrowing experience.
Right.
So I came back to the camp, the place where I had had my sleeping bag. There were no large limbs that had blown down or trees, just a lot of debris. But when I came to the place I had my sleeping bag, I was in a state of shock. This huge tree had split off about 10 feet in the air and come down butt end first, exactly where my sleeping bag, where the imprint of my sleeping bag still was. And I would have been, of course, pulverized had I stayed there. So this voice on the wind truly saved my life. And one of the things that I talk about in the book is the connection that I developed to the elemental forces of earth, air, fire, and water, and they've saved my life more than once.
So do you feel like this was like a premonition that basically coming from spirit itself? I mean, just a level of pure spirit that's giving you a warning? I mean, how do you define the voice of the
Well,
wind?
I
Is
think
that
that,
God?
I think
What
that
is
spirit, we can call it God, the voice of God. We could call it the voice of spirit. But it speaks to me, the Spirit, the Great Spirit, or the Holy Spirit, speaks through, can speak to us through the wind, can speak to us through the animals, the plants, or the earth itself, and can come to us in many ways. In this case, it came on the wind. The voice of Spirit has come to me in many other ways. The elemental forces are to me a personification of the Creator itself, the primal forces of creation, or the way that our Creator, a wondrous Creator, has of expressing itself here on the physical plane. And so my connection with earth, with the winds, with fire is intensely personal. And as you know from the book, I've had very magical experiences with all of the elements.
So is the shamanism that you describe in your book and through your experiences, is it a particular system of shamanism? I mean, were you trained by a particular sect, or is shamanism in general just indigenous cultures? They all each have their own unique flavor of relating to the universe?
Well, I think that maybe that's a good way of putting it. They each have their unique flavor, but it is really the same system of knowledge. And it seems that it evolved simultaneously and through all the different cultures and races, and that shamanism is really the foundation of all of the religions and systems of knowledge. If you go back beyond the religion, you find that there's shamanism, which is our way of connecting with the earth and all life. You know, Jesus was a great shaman. Right. Moses was a great shaman. St. Francis was a great shaman in our tradition. But the mistake that we've made is that since we were toddlers, we loved hearing these stories about Moses calling up the winds to still the storm, to part the Red Sea, or Christ stilling the storm, or St. Francis having the birds light on him. Well, we were told, but this is about them, these great souls that lived in the remote past, and we certainly can't do anything like this.
Right, the age of miracles is past.
The age of miracles is past, and And my testimony in this book is that that is not so, that we all have these abilities, and these great souls came to show us who we are. My partner has demonstrated all of these things, and she has had birds fly out and land on her, trying to nest in her hair. She has a deer come up to her. She's able to call up the winds, or stop the winds, or stop a torrential downpour. I've seen her do this, and I've done some of these things myself, but I love talking about
of course,
other people.
Jesus said, you know, you can do these things,
All
and you
these
can do
things.
greater things
Exactly.
than these.
That's right, Tony. That is the passage that haunted me the whole time I was in the church. These things and more shall you be able to do. Why haven't we taken this seriously?
Right.
What, was he telling the truth or was he lying? Well, I felt that he was telling the truth.
Absolutely. The book is called Soul on Fire. Can we get a tight shot in of this so that people can see? It's a beautiful cover. Soul on Fire, a transformational journey from priest to shaman. Our guest is Peter Calhoun. Peter, thank you for being our guest on Mystery Us.
Thank you very much, Tony.